Other things that's happening here is DHS says Iowa has hundreds of non-citizens on voter rolls. Here we go. I told you. But won't tell state who they are. Of course not. Because they basically instilled rights to them. The right to privacy, which, by the way, that's a bigger argument if the right to privacy actually exists or not for another time. More than 2,100 people on Iowa's voter rolls self-declared as non-citizens when registering for a driver's license, Iowa Secretary of State. Now, I don't know if they have to show proof of ID when they go to vote. A lot of places you don't. He provided the names of U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, which researched each name and determined that at least 250 are still non-citizens, but refused to tell Iowa which ones. Meanwhile, left-wing groups sued to block him from directing local officials to challenge votes cast by people on the list on the basis that the data wasn't fully confirmed. Here we go again.
Here we go again.
The work has been done. The most current verified information is available, yet Washington, D.C. will not share it with us. Of course they won't. Because who runs Washington, D.C.? The Democrats do. And what the Democrats want, that's why they allowed 10 million people into this country. John Fetterman was on Joe Rogan's podcast and was pushed on this whole thing. And we're going to watch the whole thing on this playbook done by the Democrat Party to move 1 million of illegal immigrants into these swing states. Check this out. And I'm kudos to Joe for pushing back on this guy on it.
First Democrats saying, hey, though, we need a secure border. It's a significant issue. And if I thought there was any kinds of issues, and I've been very vigilant throughout, I've been actively involved in those kinds of things, and I've never witnessed those kinds of a thing.
But what do you mean by issues? Like what kind of issues you're talking about? You're talking about people letting people in order to get votes?
Well, it's not. There's not that level kinds. I don't think there's that level kinds of organization.
But
there is. There absolutely is. George Soros, and we covered it here. We showed the receipts. Again, it always floors me where this dude has access to way more information than I ever will. How is it some knucklehead in a closet, I'm talking about myself, is able to show patriots, hopefully in their nice homes, all this information that George Soros is funding this whole thing? And it's not just him. There's other left-wing organizations that are doing this. They're funding to basically expedite the citizenship of illegal aliens that work here illegally. Don't give me this, dude, that it's not happening, Fetterman.
There is an organization that's moving these people to swing states. There's a significant number of these people that are illegal immigrants that have made their way to swing states. And then there's been calls for amnesty. There's been calls for allowing these people to have a pathway to citizenship and allow them to vote. The fear that a lot of people have is that this is a coordinated effort to take these people that you're allowing to come into the country, then you're providing them with all sorts of services like food stamps and housing and setting them up, and then providing a pathway to amnesty, and then you would have voters that would be significantly voting towards the Democrats because they're the people that enabled them to come into the country in the first place and provided them with those services.
Bingo.
This is a big fear that people have, and that you're rigging this system and that this will turn all these states into essentially locked blue like California is.
Well, it's immigration is always going to be a tough issue in our nation. I had as a professor in grad school, Alan Simpson, and he was a United States senator. He was Wyoming, and he was actually a pro-choice Republican. I mean, how rare that would be. Well, it doesn't exist now. And he said, you are never going to have any meaningful immigration kinds of legislation. He's like, because both sides, that's useful for them, and it's going to be back and forth. And he said that 25 years ago.
Useful meaning the debate, having it always a political
it's
talking
useful
point.
For one side or the other. It's useful. And he said there were never going to be. And he said that in 1999. Mm-hmm. And I voted for the border deal, and that went down. And he said that 25 years ago, and that was absolutely true now, that they had an opportunity to do a comprehensive border, bipartisan, and that went down because Trump, he declared that's a bad deal after it was negotiated with the other side.
But what didn't that...
So what was the bad deal? Why didn't Trump want to sit there and put forward.
Deal also involved amnesty, and didn't that deal also involve a
I
significant
did,
number
yeah.
of illegal aliens being allowed into the country every year? I think it was 2 million people.
Correct.
So it was still the same sort of situation, and their fear is exactly what I talked about, that these people will be moved to swing states, and that will be used to essentially rig those states and turn them blue forever.
Well, I'm not really sure if that's what's in play. I think it's really like it's important that we have an honest conversation.
But doesn't that seem logical, though? If you have a significant number of people that are being moved into swing states that have come across the border illegally, and then you've provided them with all these services, you provided them with food stamps, EBT, you've provided them with housing. You could, if you gave those people amnesty and allowed those people to vote, and it was very organized. You're talking about 75,000 votes over a few counties that switched everything over to the Republicans. You could see how you import 10 million people over the course of 4 years illegally, and then move a significant number of them to swing states, and then provide them with all these services, and then give them a path to citizenship. You could essentially rig those states.
This is why Kamala didn't want to show up, folks. This is why Kamala didn't want... This is why Kamala couldn't do it. Could you imagine? I mean, this guy, we need to have an honest conversation about it. You're sitting there conflating illegal immigration and immigration together. We're talking about the fact that over 10 million people have poured in this country. Oh, well, immigration's always been a problem. Not like this, it hasn't. Not since the inception of this country, dude, have we ever seen anything like this. And I mean this in all literal sense. Joe Biden, if he was to give like medals for the amount of times he broke his own record, hand to God, he would have more medals than Michael Phelps, you guys. That is not, it sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not. This whole idea like, oh, well, it's just an immigration issue. It's more than that. It is way more than that. And they're going to play it off like, oh, it's not so bad. Well, it's something that we could have gotten in the past. Yeah, when Donald Trump was in office, when he was sitting there fighting with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi for a border wall, and you nut jobs on the Democrat side of the aisle didn't want to do it. And yeah, I'm calling them nut jobs because that's what they were in that scenario of not building a border wall. And now we're dealing with this cluster bleep because you got a guy in office in 2016 that wanted to sit there and build it. And we wouldn't have maybe this massive problem that we would have. You'd still have it because you got knuckleheads running the show no matter what you do when you had a Democrat in office. Clearly, things always tend to go south. So we have that happening there.